They want their players to show up on time, Mo.
Yeah, that is true. Mo was about 20 minutes late to film this, so cheers for that, Mo.
I will be shocked unless the Patrick Vieira type hiring is there to be had. Antoine Griezmann in Kansas City would be amazing. And the reports literally this morning, as we're taping the show, is they still have interest in Lewandowski.
Welcome into This is MLS. I'm Kaylin Kyle, filling in for the lovely Jillian Sakovitz. And alongside me today, Taylor Twellman, Mo Adu, and Brian Dunseth. Gentlemen, breaking news all around Major League Soccer and in North America. Taylor Twellman, you are officially almost graduating college. Just one class to go, baby.
I am. Mo graduated about 17 years before me, so I had to follow his lead. I will be walking graduation line, Dunny, as the oldest human being ever to graduate.
Do you feel a little bit like Billy Madison?
Good for you.
A little bit?
Or Tommy Boy, one or the other.
Tommy Boy.
Feels a lot like
Definitely
it.
Tommy Boy. Definitely Tommy Boy.
Oh, congrats, Taylor. All right, some other breaking news, though, over in Atlanta. Gonzalo Pineda officially fired from Atlanta United, currently sitting in 13th position. So now interim manager Rob Valentino will take charge. You look at Gonzalo Pineda, since coming to Atlanta United in his tenure in 3.5 years, hired in August 2021 at 1.3 points per game across 110 matches, and the club missed the playoffs in 2022. Atlanta, like I just mentioned, currently sitting in 13th position. So let's dive a little bit into it. It really doesn't come as that much of a shock. Mo, you are someone that has covered Atlanta United for many, many years. They're known to win. They want to win. They have the team to win, but it just hasn't been the performance that we wanted to see on the field thus far in 2024.
It hasn't. It hasn't from anyone's expectations. Us as pundits, fans, ownership, the players themselves, they would all put their hands up and say this hasn't been good enough. So Gonzalo Pineda's firing, no, it didn't come as a surprise, but now the intriguing part is who comes next. Atlanta United, for all their ambitions, whether that's in the transfer market for players, facilities, et cetera, they built this club to be one of the best in the league. And so with that, you would expect them to go out there and their candidates that they're gonna explore are gonna be top tier. You would imagine they're looking for someone who can come in and straight away turn this team back into a winning franchise. That was the expectation with the players they signed this offseason, for Gonzalo Pineda to have all the tools he needs now to take them to the promised land, to get them back to where they deserve to be. It hasn't been the case so far. I'd be intrigued, though. I want to see if Atlanta United kind of follows suit with what they did with their first few managers, which was explore options abroad, or if they go the route that we saw the Columbus Crew do recently with the hiring of Wilfried Nancy. Look internally, look within the league. If they see a manager that they feel like can bring the best out of this group, if they say, you know what, we've spent money in the transfer market for players, we have some of the best facilities across the league, we're going to go ahead and pay a transfer fee to bring one of these managers from within our league because they fit the profile of what we need to take this team back to what we built this team to be. So I'm intrigued with that, guys. I'm curious what you guys think about this situation and who comes next for Atlanta United.
Yeah, Mo, I'll go first. Listen, I think this is a really interesting situation for a ton of obvious reasons. First and foremost, when you talk about Garth Lagerwey, he's sat back since he's come into Atlanta United. And I think he's just observed. And he's kind of had his hands on certain things, but stayed out of the mix as often as possible. But when you watch the way that this was verbalized publicly, Gonzalo Pineda being fired from Atlanta United, I never heard Carlos Bocanegra's name, which leads us all to believe that then this is going to be Garth Lagerwey's responsibility for this coaching search, for this hire, and what this looks like. You're right, there is a history. Tim Bezbatchenko went to Montreal and decided that Wilfried Nancy was his guy. Garth Lagerwey has a history of doing this. He got Freddie Juarez out of Real Salt Lake when he was head coach to bring him as an assistant coach to Seattle. So big picture, simple names like Jim Curtin, Pat Noonan, Pablo Mastroianni, all of those managers that have current success, I think are those type of managers that Garth Lagerwey and Atlanta United would be looking at. But reality is the Rolodex is going to be both domestic and abroad. I'm really intrigued to see what these final picks look like from Garth Lagerwey when he, I guess, presents them to Arthur Blank and what that decision is going forward.
It's interesting, Dunny. You know this better than anyone, being at Real Salt Lake for such a long time. This will be the first time in his professional life that Garth Lagerwey gets to hire his first team coach. He didn't get to do it at Real Salt Lake. He didn't get to do it at Seattle. So I think there's going to be a little bit more pragmatism until how he goes about it. I'm not sure you see a new manager before the end of this year, because I think Garth Lagerwey is going to have to look at this and say, hang on a minute here. Why is Atlanta United hitting the reset button again? Yeah. De Boer, Heinze, Pineda. 2017 to 2019, this was the best team in Major League Soccer at home. Since then, guys, they're not even in the top 7 for the best teams at home. That's inexplicable when the identity of your team is winning games at the Benz, winning games at home, putting on a show, entertaining. Honestly, this team has been very fragile to me when you come into the league and you blow the doors off of it with Tata Martino, Joseph Martinez, Miguel Homerun. Now all of a sudden it's a fragile mentality. You've lost 5 in a row at home, and it feels like this destination, and I know I'm going to make people a little mad here, but it feels like a stop for mercenaries. It does not feel like a franchise in Major League Soccer that has a steady foundation, that has a steady identity and a steady pedigree on who they want to be. That is not what I'm saying about the ownership. That ownership has been unreal. Arthur Blank, thank you for coming into this league and raising the bar for success and expectation. But your team on the field has not lived up to it. Your academy, one of the top 6 or 7 best academies in this league, your under-17s haven't made the playoffs 2 straight years. Yet you've got players developing at multiple levels, moving on to Europe, some coming through Major League Soccer. You follow where this long-winded answer is coming. This is Atlanta United. This is arguably a barometer for success on money spent and where it needs to go. However, you're hiring your 4th manager in 5 years. Guys, that's inexcusable for a team where money's not an issue, facilities is not an issue, infrastructure is not an issue. This is inexcusable. I will be shocked unless the Patrick Vieira type hiring is there to be had. I'm not sure Garth Lagerwey says to Rob Valentino, just do this for 3 or 4 games and let's see where it goes. Because they also may lose Giacomakis for 8 to 10 million to Cruz Azul. Now what do you do? What do you do with Thiago Almada? Guys, this is me talking for 2 minutes about what Atlanta United's going to do. We should not be doing this regarding Atlanta United. We don't do this for LAFC. We haven't done it for FC Cincinnati for the last 3 years. We don't do it really for the Seattle Sounders. If you're going to be in the conversation for top 3 or 5 brands in Major League Soccer, this cannot be in the conversation every 12 to 16 months. And unfortunately for Garth Lagerwey, it is. He's got to be very careful where he goes next because he's got to lay the foundation for this to work, Kaylin.
I look at someone like a Rob Valentino. We saw him the last time he was an interim manager. He's been the only manager that's really stuck around there. He had 4 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. The players love him. The organization loves him. T, you just touched on it with the likes of Almada, Giacomakis, 2 players that are highly sought after. Maybe not Almada as much this year as we saw last year. Would you not have Rob Valentino stay and just manage the ship and through the end of the season, see how he does, and potentially sign him to a long-term contract? He's someone in the league. He knows the league. He's been in it since Orlando days.
That's an interesting one. I think Rob Valentino could be a lifer at Atlanta United because he has a real good understanding of the academy and the pro pathway. I'm not sure that's the hiring that they want, but make no mistake about it, I would be shocked if you don't see a rejuvenated Atlanta United. But I go back to my other point. Giacomakis could be gone, guys. Do they have a 9 that's ready to go this summer to replace that? Is Almada going to go after the Olympics? Are they going to sign Almada to a new deal? So many balls are in the air for Atlanta United, and we were talking about the most balanced roster since 2019. How quickly that has been forgotten.
The only thing I would add there, and I agree with you, Tion, on quite a bit of that, it's intriguing because to your question, Kaylin, about Rob Valentino, I feel like Garth Lagerwey was pretty clever in the way that he worded that, right? He left that door open, and I think that alludes to everything you're talking about, Taylor, the moving pieces, the uncertainty of Giacomakis, because that's a big role. That's a big, big player. Although he hasn't performed the same way that he has in last year, he's still a big piece of that team. Thiago Almada, another big piece of that team. If both of those players go potentially this summer, I think that's why it's important to keep a Rob Valentino around, because he's a guy who's been there. The players know him, the players like him, and his short interim spell before, Kalen, you just mentioned his record, 4-2-2. So he found a way to galvanize a group, to find a way to get the best out of the players. But if you lose those two big key members of your team, 2 out of your 3 DPs, well, you need a player, you need a coach, an interim manager who knows the group that you have. He knows what young players he could potentially bring up to kind of supplement that group as well. And hopefully he would be the one that can galvanize his group to potentially just get through this season and into the playoffs.
And Mo, to your point, what manager around the world is going to take that job if they don't know the DPs? Also, if you've got open DP spots, you may get one of the better managers because now they can come in and kind of mold the team around their strengths. That becomes a big part of this conversation.
Hey, Taylor, really quick. Another question for me is, if Garth Lagaway is going to be the man in charge of this coaching search, who's in charge of this summer transfer window?
Yep.
Is he going to get his hands into the decision-making of not only who's going out and what that price point is, but who potentially is coming in, knowing that he gets to dictate what this roster looks like going forward?
Agreed.
Dunny, speaking of the summer transfer window, let's shift our focus from the East and jump over to the West. Some breaking news from Tom Bogart here on social media. LA Galaxy in advanced talks with free agent Marco Reus, per source. Galaxy right now agreed to a free discovery rights with Charlotte. But the interesting one, the personal terms not yet agreed with Reus and LA Galaxy. Negotiations are still ongoing. What's really interesting, though, when you do look at the LA Galaxy, based on club roster profiles, currently the Galaxy can't buy down 3 of their DPs. We know Reus would have to be a TAM player in this instant. He's coming off a big season in Europe with Borussia Dortmund, dropped the game versus Real Madrid. So when you bring him, if LA Galaxy do bring him to Major League Soccer, you have 3 DPs. LA Galaxy has been firing this season with Payne Still, Peck, Joveljic, Ricky Puig just signing that long-term contract as well. Is he going to be a bench player, or are you going to start him somewhere within this starting 11?
Yeah, you drop him in the starting 11, absolutely. But the question for me is, how many games can he play at a regular basis? Listen, 36 years of age, he played 20 minutes in the Champions League final. I think he had something like 6 goals, 6 assists when it was all said and done, 26 appearances over the course of the year. If you're into FOTMOB ratings, you got a 7.2 or something like that. Listen, he can still make a difference in this league. And remember, Will Kuntz and all the experience that he has as he continues to turn over this LA Galaxy roster, he wants to make sure that they are a major player in Major League Soccer. And El Tráfico, the battle with LAFC, he's doing his business as he's turned over this roster. The 3 Ps are the 3 Ps. The Galaxy is spending money left and right, and they're getting back into that upper echelon where they used to be in the Western Conference. Now, the reality is the wear and tear of his body, we don't know. Target allocation money, you can figure ways around that. There's a history of that. Look at Chiellini and Bale at LAFC. I think it's a no-brainer. I absolutely think it's a no-brainer. And the moment that he walks in, he makes everybody around him better. The squad is better. The team is better. I absolutely can see it happening. And for the LA Galaxy, I think this would be another step in the right direction underneath Will Kuntz.
Denny, have we not learned anything yet with, sorry, T, have we not learned anything yet with Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez with their age? Age is just a number for these guys. They take care of themselves so much. Sorry, T, I interrupted you there.
No, but what's interesting is, though, where does he fit in with the team tactically? Quality is undeniable with Marco Reus. That's not a conversation. Fitness will be an issue, but if he doesn't have to play every single game, that's totally fine. But you're also not going to waste this energy to sign him and say you're only going to play 35, 40 minutes. Now, their number 9 situation, I've been saying on this program since whenever we started it, keep an eye on that. And the reports literally this morning, as we're taping the show, is they still have interest in Lewandowski. And that is the one signing they want. Does it turn into a TAM signing this? I don't care. What I'm telling you guys is Marco Reus is the interconnecting highway to get to Lewandowski and try to convince him to come now. Now, Lewandowski's being paid $16 million net at Barcelona. They've got to find a way to navigate that. But they need a number 9. Joveljic, in and out with injury. In order to make all of that work, they want Lewandowski. And if Marco Reus comes there to do that, that's fine. That doesn't mean they don't trade one of their DPs, if not 2 of them. If they can get Lewandowski right now, they will do anything possible to do that. And that's why this signing is very interesting to me, because he turned down 15 to 20 million net in Saudi Arabia to come to Major League Soccer.
I tell you what, man, Major League Soccer making some headways. Listen, this to me feels very much like what we saw with LAFC and Gareth Bale, right? It's an opportunity to. I love the fact that it's a TAM deal. To me, a TAM deal, it's a no-brainer. You sign him. You sign Marco Reus, because even if he's, it sounds crazy to say that he wouldn't feature in the starting 11, but if he's not featuring in the starting 11, but has a capability to come off the bench and make a big game play, a la Gareth Bale, MLS Cup final, deliver in the biggest moments because he has that pedigree, he has that experience, and he has that quality. The other part that you're mentioning, Taylor, about Lewandowski, if he's the piece that is able to draw him in and complete that deal, that's just cherry on top of the cake. But to me, it's a no-brainer if you're able to get Marco Reus on a TAM deal. I know fitness, injuries, all that could be a concern, but the quality, the leadership, the experience that he could bring both on the pitch and to that dressing room, I think would be vital for an LA Galaxy side.
Mo Dunny, just real quick, and I forgot, sorry to interrupt you. Mark Delgado, he can sign anywhere as a free agent in about 3 weeks.
So you let him go to bring in Reus? Is that
what I'm saying is we think he's not going to start. He may come off the bench. If you know you're losing Mark Delgado, you may trade him to save pennies to the dollar because you haven't re-signed him. There is an open spot at that dual, whether it's a dual 10, whether it's an 8, however you want to tactically describe it. They may lose Delgado out of their starting 11 because he's a free agent at the end of the year and he can sign a deal anywhere he wants to 6 months prior. Follow where I'm going? So Marco Reus may be in this lineup, in this 11, right next to Ricky Puig as a dual 10.
I love the fact that, that's even a topic of conversation, that whether or not he's – I don't think you can ask any manager in this league around the world, hey, if I can bolster your squad and give you more quality, do you want that problem? Oh, of course they want that problem. They want that headache. Greg Vanny will be sitting there salivating at the prospect of having.
He won't play center back though, buddy.
Most definitely not.
All right, gentlemen, I got to move us on here. We have match day 19 coming up this weekend. Still 4 games in action. We are on an international break, but it's that midway point of the season where teams need to collect these 3 points in order to maybe push their team farther into the playoff positions. We talked about Gonzalo Pineda being fired from Atlanta United. There's also some other teams maybe in a little bit of hot water. So I want to start with the New England Revolution, who will play the New York Red Bulls. Very different team from what we saw at the beginning of last season in 2024 under Caleb Porter. Just 3 wins on the season there, Dunny.
Yeah, and a big 3 points at Nashville last weekend, right? But this is a long, long way away from what it was in 2021 when they were the best in Major League Soccer. Obviously, well publicized, the departure of Bruce Arena away from the New England Revolution last season and the turbulence that the club and the players suffered throughout that. But the reality, I think now going forward, is for Caleb Porter to try to continue to make this his team. Now, as I say that, guys, it's not just about bringing in Ivičić or Arriaga. I think most importantly, it's convincing guys like Carlos Gil to buy into whatever Caleb and his staff is selling. The reality is this club has done a great job in selling players abroad, whether you talk about Buchanan, Buxa, Petrovic, you talk about Matt Turner, all of these guys. They made a great amount of money. But the squad itself right now, I can't figure out these Jekyll and Hyde performances. You want them to be expansive, exciting. You want them to see on both sides of the ball that they're confident in what they're doing. And I haven't seen that in a consistent basis. I don't think anybody has. So right now, when you talk about the ego of Caleb Porter, and I mean that with all due respect, this is a winner in Portland and in Columbus. He was brought here for one purpose, and that was to win. And as of right now, this club is far off from what expectations are right now for Caleb Porter.
It's amazing, Dunny, to think 11 months ago, I was in Cincinnati for FC Cincinnati hosting the New England Revolution, and the winner of that game was going to be #1 in the Supporter Shield race. That's less than 12 months ago. Now, granted, Petrovic was in goal for that game, and Bruce Arena was the manager. In respect to Caleb Porter and what you're talking about, this isn't his roster. And I think if you ask Caleb Porter on the side, off the record, he would probably tell you, no, I need 5, 6, 7 players that are in the mold of what I like to do and how I want to go about this. Carlos Gil is bought in. Everything locally in Boston, everything I hear off the side, Carlos Gil loves everything about it. But this isn't his roster. And so what's going to be interesting is how long do they weather the storm? Do they do anything this summer? the fact that we don't see anything from like a Noel Buck, who last summer was rumored to be anywhere from 6 to 8 million. Will he be loaned out? Will he be sold? There's just a lot of balls up in the air for the New England Revolution. And to think less than 12 months ago, they were playing to be number 1 seed in the Supporter Shield? It's unbelievable how quickly this has gone 180.
Well, another team that's gone 180 as well, Orlando City, a really interesting story in 2024. One of the teams that I think all 4 of us across this panel right now had them in the top 4. They're currently sitting 11th in the East. Very inconsistent lineups. I mean, going from an attacking lineup, just trying to pull something different. Mo, should there be cause for concern down in Orlando?
Yeah, there definitely should be cause for concern in Orlando based on the season they had last year, based on the coach that they have in place in Oscar Pereira, who I think is one of the top coaches in this league. And he's shown that with the way that he galvanized his group and got success over the last few years with them. But more importantly, internally, there should be more expectations from this group of players. They have 1 win in their last 5 games, and in that time frame, just 2 goals. Now that's the part that's concerning for me. You're talking about the different lineups, the different formations. To me, that's a reflection of this manager just trying to find a way to get the best out of his players, to get his quote-unquote best players on the pitch. It's scary to think that 2 of their 3 DPs have combined for less goals than their leading goal scorer, Duncan McGuire, who, by the way, is not even supposed to be here. He was supposed to be signing for a championship club at Blackburn, right? And so the fact that he's here, he's still the one carrying the torch. Luis Muriel, DP signing, big DP signing, was supposed to be the one leading the charge for them. Just 2 goals in the year. To me, those are the things where I'm not even sure it's necessarily the manager that has to find a way to get the best out of the players. The players have to step up. Martin Ojeda, the other DP alongside Facundo Torres, it's not even sure that he's going to start every single game. So if you have 3 DPs, 2 out of the 3 of them are not guaranteed starters, they're not delivering, it makes it a pretty difficult task for your manager, regardless of who that manager is. But ultimately, yeah, I think this Orlando side, they set the bar high enough for themselves last year and are massively underperforming that standard.
Yeah, Mo, I think all of us had them at least in the top 5 of the Eastern Conference in terms of predictions. But whatever the functionality is right now, Pereira leaving, Nico Ladero coming in, and this idea of what they're trying to be, expansive type of football, keep the ball on the deck, ping it around, variation of service from wide play. And you're right, you go back to the offseason with the Duncan McGuire situation, what that looked like, and then reintegrating him back into the system, but understanding that you signed Luis Muriel behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. All of this is just havoc and confusion, I feel like, for Oscar Pereira, trying to figure out where that you're talking about responsibility of roles for players, absolutely. But at the same time, I feel like this group just needs that confidence of 2 or 3 games on a roll, and then they're back to maybe what we saw back in 2023.
Well, speaking of confidence in a team that is lacking it, Sporting Kansas City, again, it's almost a carbon copy of what we saw last year, but at the beginning of their season, haven't won in their last 10 under Peter Vermees, and it's looking very grim, Taylor.
Yeah, they've lost 7 in a row too, Kalen. It's remarkable to think that if you go back to last season when they were winless in 10 or 11, whatever it was, they were the best team in the Western Conference from May 7th on. Just let that sink in. They went winless in their first 10 or 11 games of the year, and they were the best team in the Western Conference. Then they surprised St. Louis City in the playoffs. And if not for an injury or 2, they probably could have been in the Western Conference final, let alone an MLS Cup against Columbus. Yet, it's the 2nd straight year you've had a winless streak of 10 games. Now, Peter Vermees has built everything. He's been so important to everything they're about. Remember, last year there was a massive rumor that was confirmed by ownership, confirmed by Cristiano Ronaldo's camp, that they were in conversations before he went to Saudi Arabia about going to Sporting Kansas City, and they were going to surprise everyone before it was Messi and Inter Miami. I don't know if a move like that, and this sounds as ludicrous as I'm going to say it, I don't know if that saves this year. Is an Antoine Griezmann kind of signing going to save the season for Peter Vermees? Does it save his job? I don't know, but 2 years in a row, you've been winless in 10. I don't firmly believe that fan base is behind this group the way they were at the end of last season. I just don't feel it for Sporting Kansas City in the moment.
Taylor, the thing that's hard to digest is the consistency of negative results, right? Like, as you just mentioned, it was a similar trend to start off last season. Now you're going through a similar cycle now. When I watch these games from Sporting Kansas City, it looks like a group of players who just seem to lack confidence. The goals that they concede, I mean, without
They're
being
brutal,
disrespectful,
Mo.
they're criminal.
Mo, they're brutal goals. They're inexplicable.
And it just seems like a group of players that are just drained of confidence. Absolutely no confidence. I think a break would serve them well. I think Leagues Cup would come at a great time for them to get away from leagues play, and maybe you can get your group to galvanize during a tournament type setting, and hopefully that's a refresher for them. But right now, I can't put a finger on the pulse as to what needs to change instantaneously for this group to get back to winning games.
Well,
Antoine Griezmann in Kansas City would be amazing.
Mo, they won't be getting a break this weekend as Match Day 19, Kansas City welcome the Seattle Sounders. You can catch that right here on MLS Season Pass, kicking off at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Gentlemen, let's keep things rolling on This Is MLS. Kaylin, Kyle, Dunny, Mo, and Taylor. Big games happening this weekend on Match Day 19. It is international break, but 4 games in action. Minnesota United taking on FC Dallas. For Minnesota, they have been unbelievable this season, to say the very least, sitting 3rd currently out west. Dunny, for you, you look at Emmanuel Reynoso. He's officially sold. He's over in Mexico now. They only have 1 DP spot. They have 2 DP spots available. What kind of moves could we see them making in that summer transfer window?
Well, I think they already knocked it out of the park by getting rid of Reynoso as quickly as possible in the circus that's been surrounding him for the last 18 months. The reality is we're not sure. Whatever Eric Ramsey has been doing behind the scenes, credit to Cam Knowles for what he did throughout the course of the preseason to prepare this team. I think we were all really excited to see Pookie up top, Reynoso underneath, pulling the strings, Bongi on Longway on the right-hand side, seeing where Robin Lod, a healthy Robin Lod, what this looks like. But here's a bigger question for me, guys, is what does this look like from a chief soccer officer perspective? Alimat gets his opportunity to finally put his own little touch on what this summer transfer window looks like. We're not really sure what his Rolodex looks like because we haven't been able to see it yet, but I'm really intrigued to see if Minnesota United is willing to spend the money during this summer transfer window to take that team to the next level, because it's been an extraordinary start to 2024 so far.
Yes, Dunny, reward these players, reward this manager for the way that they've been playing this season, pretty much without a DP. I know Teemu Pukki's been there, but he's scored 2 goals, right? So he hasn't hit the heights that he hit last year, where he was their leading goal scorer and their talisman. So reward these players. They've done well, 18, 20 of them, whoever has played, through rotations and stepping up in big moments to get the points that they deserve and that they've needed thus far. Is this sustainable without bringing in a big player? Because in the summertime, the West is going to improve. Galaxy they're going to improve. LAFC is going to improve. There's room for Salt Lake to get better. So teams are going to improve in the summertime. So don't be that guy that's done so far to get to this point, but now you have a chance to get better and take this team to the next level. I think a superstar type player for this Minnesota side is what gives them a chance to now win some silverware. Because being in contention, flirting at the top of the West, that's all fun and well, but you want to be lifting trophies. And I think a big-time player, or maybe a couple big-time players in the summer, could help them get to that stage.
What about an Antoine Griezmann, a Cristiano Ronaldo to Minnesota? I feel like they'd love that cold weather in the March-May era. For FC Dallas, Taylor, it's been a weird season for them. We thought we were seeing a turnaround. They lost their last 2, a little bit disappointing of a season. How do they turn things around over there?
It just feels like when I watch FC Dallas, it's square pegs and round holes. It just feels like it. So whether we could sit here and talk for minutes about 3-4-3 system of play, formation, whatever that is, it just doesn't seem to suit the players are there. And the reason why I say that, go to the analytics. Expected goals, 2nd fewest in the league. Goals scored, 4th fewest in the league. And yet you went out and spent more money than you've ever spent in club history for a number 9, for a goal scorer. You've got one of the best homegrown goal scorers this league's ever had, and yet you're struggling to score goals. It just feels like, to me, it's a bunch of square pegs in round holes, and that surprises me a little bit because the way this team was progressing at the end of last year, you felt like if they added some money, spent money, which they did, the system would all come together. Now it looks like it's all falling apart. He's got to find a way to bring this thing back together to get the players confident in how they're playing, and I don't think it's in a 3-4-3 system.
Taylor, it's like a little bit of me today working with you three. Square pegs in round holes. You can catch that
That's how
game.
you
Minnesota
feel.
United hosting FC Dallas this Saturday, June 8th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And another massive game happening this weekend. St. Louis taking on Portland. Dunny, for St. Louis, it's been another weird season considering we saw what they did in their inaugural season, top of the table in the West, and now they're a win, they're a lose, but they also had Edward Leuven back into the midfield after obviously the news broke of his wife, so we are sending her and his family the best wishes. But he adds just such an element and a change in a positive way for this team.
Yeah, that's it right there. Just having Leuven back in the starting 11 is everything. Roman Bürki standing on his head. Listen, I go all the way back to the summer, and Lutz and Bradley doing a great job with the additions. Chris Durkin coming in, Totland on that right-hand side. And I thought, okay, they're addressing competition at left back. They have a starting right back. Now they've got this bulldog of a central midfielder that covers all this ground. Yes, you lose Gioacchini, but Adeniran's going to continue to develop. AZ Jackson just got his full national team debut with the U.S. in January. Celio Pompeo is going to continue to grow into a dynamic left-sided player. They're going to be top of the West. And then it's draw after draw after draw. And I doing these games, every time I've covered St. Louis, I see a team that can be incredibly dominant. It can be incredibly fluid, dynamic in a sense that Bradley Carnell can go to his bench and change his system and his identity. But the one thing I wonder, and this is something that I'm not privy to because I'm not at training every single day, I just wonder at some points where the coaching staff looks at the training sessions, not just the games themselves, the white lines, 90 minutes, that's when he starts to change what he's trying to do for the upcoming opponent. They have their style, they have their identity. I love the way they play, but right now they just need to continue. We saw it against Inter Miami. We see the highs and we see the lows. And right now it's just a matter of consistency, getting a few more results under their belt. And I think they could set themselves up for a great run in the Western Conference.
St. Louis hosting the Portland Timbers. Mo, for Portland, it's been an interesting season as well, but it seems as Phil Neville, the head coach for the Portland Timbers, has really got his DPs to finally buy in to the system that he wants to play, and it's been clicking.
That to me, the attacking phase for Portland has always been, I think, their better part of their game. Between Evander, his connection with Jonathan Rodriguez, and his connection with Felipe Mora, I feel like they have three interesting pieces in the attack. You throw in Anthony, if he can establish a level of consistency. Santi Moreno, when he plays, if he can be the player that they all expect and know his skill set leads him to be, that part of it, I think they can figure out. But what he's done, Phil Neville's done the last few games, is just figure out how to get results. When you're in such a poor stretch of games where you haven't won a game in a long time, you play a derby match at home, you take the lead against Seattle, then you end up losing that game 2-1. It's so easy for heads to drop, for morale to be lost. So for him to find a way to just say, look, it's not going to be pretty at all times. We're still figuring out what our best system is, who our best 11 is, what's the best position for Jonathan Rodriguez. We cite him as a 9. He said he wants to play wide. So they're still working out all those different kinks. But the most important thing for that group of players and for Phil Neville was to just get rid of all that toxicity, which was surrounding them with all those negative results. So to get back to being in a run of games now where you're starting to feel like you tied that game against Houston, you walk away from that game thinking we had more there to have or to take away from that match. That's a positive feeling, which sounds crazy to say, but that's a positive feeling. So the biggest change that I've seen from Phil Neville and this group is just them figuring out ways to win games and to get results. Ultimately, they still have to get better defensively because as it stands, they're second in the West in terms of goals scored, I think with 32, but then they're also second in the West in terms of goals allowed with 32 as well. So that's where they have to make up that difference and feel like they can sustain a spot and make it into the playoffs.
Just
Mo, I think they will be very active this offseason, this summer. Sorry, Kaylin.
No,
they will be very active.
I love that Taylor's just dropping little nuggets and teas everywhere.
Taylor, quickly, where do you think they need the most improvement defensively?
You hit the nail on the head. I'd be stunned if they don't go out and get one, if not two center backs in this league, because I know Phil Neville really, really prioritizes successful players in this league, and we've already talked about some of those names in this show to give a hint, but I would be stunned if the Portland Timbers don't make at least not 1-2 big moves this summer.
Hey, Taylor, really quick, isn't it interesting, though? It was, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago when you're talking to Phil Neville and he's talking like, I need a leader, I need a big presence, I need someone in that central part of the midfield. or someone as a center back. And you look at the rotation that he's had as the 3 center backs, and where does Kamal Miller fit in all this? Yeah. I was intrigued to hear how he was verbalizing this. And Mo, I agree. This is a team that almost had to find its own rhythm on the field. It was less about Phil. Phil was constantly in the public saying, okay, it's not good enough. We got to be better. He was, now I know who I can trust, who I can believe in. And now that they're starting to get these runs, and if they hadn't hit the post twice in the dying moments against Houston, that's 9 points in 3 games, right? So, Taylor, I'm really intrigued to see what type of big presence that he's identifying that's going to make this team better.
You can't rely on Diego Chara that much longer, guys. You just can't.
It's true.
Dunny, if you really want to know, Phil texted me earlier this week and said that he was talking to Mo Adu's agent, so he was coming back out of retirement to help with that situation.
They're trying to win games. They're trying to win games, all right?
They want their players to show up on time, Mo.
Yeah, that is true. Mo was about 20 minutes late to film this, so cheers for that, Mo. You can catch St. Louis hosting the Portland Timbers this Saturday, June 8th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on MLS Season Pass. Voting is underway for the 2024 MLS All-Star Game presented by Target. The league's shining stars will take center stage against the best of Liga MX at columbuslower.com field on Wednesday, July 24th. You can cast your vote for the MLS All-Stars on mlssoccer.com/all-star and on the MLS app through June 10th. All right, gentlemen, without further ado, drum roll, please. We've created our own 11 for This is MLS this week. So shall we take a look at it and have a little bit of a heated debate of who we've picked? All right, well, let's drop it in here. This is the only reason why TT comes, is to have a good argument. So this is our starting 11. Make your case. Dunny, let's start with you.
Ooh. Yeah, I think the front 3 picks itself. No problem with that. I think with Lucho and Ricky Puig sitting in front of Busquets. The only thing, maybe it's an RSL Homer, a Emeka Eneli. There's a joke somewhere in there that if he got this bonus, it would probably double his salary for this season. For me, I'm going to go Jordi Alba at left back. I'm going to choose my left center back. My left center back, Brian Vera. Then I'm going to go Miles Robinson. And I got to be honest, right back has to be the most difficult decision in this roster. I actually went with Totland from St. Louis. And then for my goalkeeper, I'll continue in St. Louis. I went with Roman Berkey. Just his advanced stats right now are absurd.
Dunny, who are your 3 in the middle? Who are you? Acosta, Puig, and Busquets. You're okay with?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I think Emeka's done a great job as well. But yeah, I'm good with those 3.
All right, Mo, let's go over to you. T, we're saving you for last.
I didn't know I was doing wholesale changes. Now that I just heard Dunny's, I'm like, I feel pressure now. I just had a couple that I thought could get into the squad. I'm not even sure into this 11, but looking at that 11, I'd be okay with switching Alba at left back as well. I'm gonna bring Moise Bombito into that center back.
Love that, Mo. Heck yeah.
Dude, him alongside Miles Robinson. There's no way you're playing a ball in behind. We can play as high a line as we want because the pace that those two have, you're not getting past them. So I'm okay with that. Look, Robin Lund, what he's done for Minnesota United, he deserves to be in this team. I don't know where I could fit him in, so you know what I'm gonna do? He's a man that can play multiple positions. Yamane, I like you. You've done well in your first season. Robin Lund's playing right back for me. Busquets. All right. Busquets is my guy, one of my favorite players in that position of all time. But if I have those 5 players in front of him, I need someone who can cover a little bit more ground. So that's where I actually like your pick, Emeka Eneli for Salt Lake. What he's done this season, where I'm not sure the expectation was for him to play as many games as he had, but obviously injuries have now forced him into a situation where he has thrived and shined for that team. I like the ground he can cover. I like the way that he's a ball winner. He's tenacious. I'm going to slot either him or Aiden Morris in there as my number 6.
Ooh, good one. Like that. All right, TT, floor is yours. Let's hear it.
Well, first off, this is a waste of time because we all know the fans are going to basically vote in every Inter Miami player. So the first 45 minutes in Columbus will be Inter Miami versus Liga MX All-Star. We all know that's what's going to happen. There's a good debate to be had on a couple of these. Jordi Alba is not my left back. I think Orishano has been fantastic. There's 2 stats that we got to remember this on. Who are the best 2 defenses in the league? Columbus, Cincinnati. I think Robinson and Miazga, they're interchanging. The biggest surprise of this league has been Minnesota. Boxall deserves a shout, but no way he's in the 11. I'd argue Justin Glad has had a better season overall than Boxel, but Boxel should be an All-Star. But what we're doing is we're picking the backups to Inter Miami playing their 11. Busquets is the greatest 6 of his generation. So for me to look into this camera and say, I don't know if Sergio Busquets deserves to be in this. But you guys answer me this. New York City has won 8 of their last 9. When you go analytically, tackles won, percentage of those tackles that then turn into possession, who's number 1 in the league as a 6? James Sands. So in looking at that, I can't believe I'm looking in this camera saying James Sands over Busquets. But you guys follow what I'm talking about. It's an all-star game. So play Inter Miami the first 35 minutes, and then the other players that deserve to be all-stars based on how their season's gone, then you bring them in, and that's how Wilfried Nancy should handle his business. Busquets is going to go. This is ridiculous. But James Sands, Justin Glad, they're my 2, I would say, unsung heroes that nobody's talking about.
Okay, so speaking of, hold on, Mo. Heroes. Speaking of unsung heroes, then, Dunny and Mo, who are you having as players that should be into the 11 that aren't Inter Miami players that aren't getting enough love?
Yeah, I was stuck here because I was going to say Daniel Gazdag because he's got 10 goals and assists. I think Lewis Morgan has been incredible this year.
Agreed.
Let me throw a really big curveball at you. I'm going to go with Matty Bogusz. I mean, you talk about a guy who playing in that midfield 3, switching up, popping in, popping out, late arriving, and then this year being asked to play as a number 9. You know, you go back to an MLS Cup final where 5 starters and then 2 substitutes aren't on the roster to start the season for Steve Cherundolo. And imagine that conversation. Steve says to Matty, like, hey, buddy, come on in. Well, I know you're more of like an attacking midfielder type of position, but I need you to play a number 9. Okay, cool. Like how many games? I don't know, until Giroud gets here in the summer. And he's slowed down his finishing. He's dynamic. He pops in the midfield. He makes everyone around him better. I think he's been extraordinary this year.
I would have hit that curveball about 550 feet over the left field wall, Dunny. No chance.
Okay.
All right, Mo, hit us.
I'm not sure if it's that much of a curveball because the kid has played well. Andres Gomez for Real Salt Lake. I think he's got 8 goals, 6 assists. We talk so much about Chicho, rightfully so. That is his team. He is that guy, and I will never, never take anything away from him. But to have Andres Gomez be your Robin to Batman, I think that's a nice little pairing we can have. But he's not in my 11, but he's definitely in that squad. I think he's done an incredible amount. He's taken the growth that you want to see from a young player. He's made those strides this season. So I've been really impressed with him, and he in my mind, deserves a shout for the squad, not the 11, the squad.
Okay, I got 3 for you guys. Let me know if I'm throwing strikes or we are knocking this out of the park. Are we ready? Federico Bernardeschi for Toronto. It's not just because of Toronto and John Herdman, but he's been unbelievable. My next one.
Wait, but that's an unsung hero?
No, I just want to throw him in there. Why are we rolling our eyes? Emil Forsberg, unbelievable. New York Rebels, and then maybe my one that's like under the radar, Matt Freese. No?
Oh, I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that.
So I'm 1 for 3.
Naturally, you're going to pick someone. You're going to pick someone from Toronto. We knew that, everyone. I'm surprised you didn't say Insigne should be the guest player, too, while you're at it. However,
I wanted
in
to
fairness,
say John Herdman, but I didn't.
Pretty good.
That's the thing.
Been pretty good, though.
He has been good, but that's the thing for me. I thought for sure she was going to say, oh, John Herdman's going to come on as an assistant coach or something.
Guys, I'm wearing red, okay? Of course I'm going to come here. I'm going to take Jill's spot for 1 week. You won't call me back for another 6 months. So for myself, Kaylin Kyle, filling in for the lovely Jillian Sakovic.
Red, eh?
I'll see you next season, 2025. From Mo Adu, Brian Dunseth, and Taylor Twellman. See you guys all later.